Until now, we thought the Big Ten's Tony Petitti and the SEC's Greg Sankey were in lockstep as the two conferences prepared to take over the world of college football. That appears to not be the case. Apparently, Petitti and Sankey have much different views on how to conduct the future college football playoffs. Did Sankey just stab Petitti and the Big Ten in the back and change his mind on everything? Let's figure this out. Locked On Big Ten starts right now.
You are Locked On Big Ten, your daily podcast on the Big Ten Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Big Ten. I'm Craig Sheeman, 40 years as a sports talk show host and play-by-play announcer, and I want to thank you for making us your first listen each and every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Hit that free subscribe button down below while you're at it. You'll never miss an episode. Plus, share, like, and follow. By the way, pushing for 20,000 subscribers. Thank you very much. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So, Petitti versus Sankey, Big Ten versus SEC. Usually we talk about these two in cahoots together. What's going on? Santa Ono has just resigned as the president of Michigan to become the president of Florida, except Florida rejected him at the last second. Whoa, what happened there? Plus, we have all the recruiting news and our Big Ten Classics all coming up. Look, I'm confused. I'll admit it when I'm confused. I like to come in here every day with our daily visits as a bit of a self-proclaimed authority. Regarding the future of the college football playoff, it's got me off just a bit. I wonder if the SEC just stabbed the Big Ten in the back. What do I mean by all this? Well, let's get into it. Big Ten Commissioner Tony Petitti and SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey, they're calling the shots moving on after this year together, and everybody else just has to deal with whatever they decide. And I assumed, and you assumed, I think, and we all assumed all along that Petitti and Sankey were on the same page with all this stuff. After all, they meet together separately. They're buds, right? When all the commissioners get together, then Petitti and Sankey huddle up afterward at a secret location and iron things out just to make sure they're all on the same page. That's why we thought that. So just 2 weeks ago, we were under the impression that the Big Ten and the SEC were going to force feed the jump from 12 to 16 playoff teams after 2025 as we go into 2026, right? All right, fine. So how are we going to do that? Well, the Big Ten and the SEC, we're going to decide how we're going to do that. We were under the impression that the Big Ten and the SEC were going to force feed a playoff format that included 4 automatic qualifiers from each of their two conferences, the Big Ten and the SEC, and force it on everybody else, no matter if they had a good year or a bad year, or maybe, last year the SEC was down. Did they deserve 4? That's the big debate here. Oh, and by the way, the Big 12 and the ACC, guess what? You're only getting 2 teams in. That's it. Every year. Although there are 3 at-large bids up for grab. One of those would likely include Notre Dame. And 1 spot would be reserved for the group of 5 conferences. All of them fighting for 1 spot. Now, along the way, there has been talk of the SEC playing a 9th conference game instead of the 8 to match the Big Ten for fairness. So they're all playing on a level field. And there was talk of revamping the conference championship weekend, replacing it altogether with play-in games. The 3rd place team in a conference plays the 6th place team, and the 4th place team plays the 5th place team. And those games battle for the right to garner a couple of those automatic qualifier spots. All this is just up in the air and crazy, but we all thought that the Big Ten and the SEC were all behind the push. At least they were on the same page. Then Tony Petitti held his annual Big Ten meetings in Los Angeles 2 weeks ago. Not a peep came out of that meeting. Some of you didn't even know they had the meeting. No press conferences, no announcements, nothing. Then last week, Greg Sankey held the SEC meetings in Destin, Florida, and made tons of news. We got like 5 podcasts out of the information. We've been doing this all week. It's been crazy. It seemed like Sankey was holding a press conference every 3 minutes over there. Just talking away every time he made news. And along the way, the Big 12 and the ACC, their commissioners were speaking to Sankey through the media going, hey, make sure while you're making all your big important decisions over there, you do what's best for college football as a whole and not just what's best for the SEC and the Big 10. And they said automatic qualifiers, getting 4 spots, for example, was unfair. They preferred the 5+11 model that we've talked about at length this week, where the top ranked conference champions, the top 5, earned automatic bids, and then there were 11 at-large bids to the playoffs. By the way, we also pointed out all week on this podcast that the Big 12 will get fewer teams in that way. I don't think they realized that yet, but that would be the case. If this format had been in place, the 5-11, the last 2 years, they would only get 1 team in the playoffs each of the last 2 years. I don't think they figured that one out yet. But that's their problem. Speaking of problems, Sankey learned that he had a problem in his own conference, in his own house. His athletic directors like the automatic qualifiers, and they like playing a 9th conference game because they'd all get about $5 more million out of the deal. But the football coaches wanted no part of the automatic qualifiers. They wanted the 5-11 model, and they wanted no part of a 9th conference game. They figured their 8 that they play in the SEC are tough enough. All along, Sankey was not in the mood for all the dissension, and he took it out on the Big 12 and the ACC and said, hey, I don't need lectures from you people over there about what's good for college football. I got enough on my plate here. So by the end of the week, Sankey completely flipped, and he threw his conference's support behind the 5-11 plan. And that's in direct contrast to what the Big 10 wants. See where we're going here? Sankey also shocked everyone, or at least me, when he said that he had never been in support of automatic qualifiers in the playoffs. He said if it were up to him, it would just be the top 12 teams. That's it. Granted, in his defense, he's doing a lot of juggling over there. You know, he's got to appear flexible. He's dealing with, big-time politics in his own conference between the ADs and coaches and all that. But according to my memory, this seems like a little revisionist history, if you ask me. I would love to hear what Tony Petitti has to say about all this and whether he thinks there's some betrayal here going on. And I would love to be a fly on the wall if Petitti and Sankey have been on the phone here this week following those SEC meetings. Love it. And again, a couple other things I learned. So it was Petitti that spearheaded the whole idea about changing conference weekend and making it conference play-in weekend. I've never been a real big fan of that. I didn't know it was him that was spearheading that. Very interesting. So the Big Ten believes that the automatic qualifier format would alleviate all the college football selection committee controversy and their conflicting, they want one thing one week and the next, and they're never consistent. We talk about it at like every single year. He said this would eliminate that. All right. We're going to let the conferences handle how they get to their 4. Make it very simple. No politics, no wrong opinions, nothing getting in the way. But now, with Sankey's slippery slide to the other side, this may set up a battle royale between the Big Ten and the SEC for the future of the college football playoffs. We often talk about Petitti and Sankey being the 2 most powerful men in sports. We may find out that one is more powerful than the other, depending on which playoff format we have. What do you guys think? It seems like every day it's something new with all this. We thought we were going down one road. Now there's a lot of forks in the road here with the college football playoffs. And who's really going to make the final decisions? The Big Ten or the SEC? It's still, or is the Big 12? This is what they wanted, the 5-11. And they really, they're the minority here, if you will. Which way are we going? Be sure to hit that subscribe button, and you'll never miss an episode. You can share, follow, and like Locked On Big Ten. Also, don't forget to check out our website, talkbig10.com. We have a bunch of Big Ten merchandise there, along with the podcasts that we put there each and every day. And hit that subscribe button. We're making a push to 20,000 subscribers between now and the start of football season. We are getting close, thanks to your help. Always appreciate that. All right. The real story behind Santa Ono, who stepped down as the president for Michigan, looked like it was a done deal. He's going to Florida. The moving vans were on the way, and they said, turn around. you're not getting the job. We have more house settlement news on revenue share. That deadline keeps getting pushed further in the summer. What are we doing? We also have recruiting news because we love that from Ohio State, Michigan, and Wisconsin, plus our Big Ten Classics. All that's coming up in 1 minute right here on Locked On Big Ten. The NBA playoffs, we're down to the championship. This is it. Pacers, Thunder. Love it. We got some superstars here. You could do some prop bets on, take the overs on everything. Points, assists from SGA, rebounds, Tyrese Halliburton, over. Take the overs and parlay them together. Be great. So you can get in on the action with FanDuel. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off or in-game, whatever you want to do. Player props, point spreads, they have it all. You can combine them, too. It's fantastic. And how does a $200 in bonus bet sound to you? Add to the excitement if your first $5 bet hits. It's fantastic. Put it all in there, man. Have some fun. If you're new to FanDuel, this is a great time to get signed up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sportsbook betting partner of the NBA. Well, thank you for making Locked On Big Ten your first listen each and every day, especially you everydayers out there. Thanks for making us go. Meanwhile, and spread the word. Tell everybody we're out here. Meanwhile, be sure to hit that subscribe button down below. Share, follow, and like Locked On Big Ten, your team every day. And check out our website, talkbig10.com, for podcasts and Big Ten team merchandise ahead of the 2025 season. Scroll down to the bottom for that. All right, so I have a follow-up to yesterday's news that former president of Michigan, Santa Ono, will not be the next president of the Florida Gators. He stepped down from Michigan a few weeks ago when Florida announced that Ono was the only remaining finalist for the job. This was a layup. It was a done deal. And a week ago, the Florida Board of Trustees unanimously voted for his nomination. Again, done deal. But then he didn't get the job. What happened? What happened here? The Board of Governors, the Board of Trustees make the nomination. The Board of Governors, they're higher up. They got the final vote. They carry more weight. And they voted down his nomination on Tuesday. I believe it was a 6-4 vote. So we don't ever get political on this podcast, ever, and we're not going to now. But the facts of the story are that the Board of Governors did not like Ono's stances at Michigan on DEI initiatives, and Michigan was also full of on-campus protests with a lot of the stuff that's going on in the Middle East. So they said, no, we don't want you here. Ono would have received a 5-year, $15 million deal to be president of Florida. And by the way, during Jim Harbaugh's troubles and suspensions at Michigan in 2023, there was no bigger supporter for Jim Harbaugh than Ono. And now he's gone at Michigan and he never got in the door at Florida. That's the latest. As long as we're tackling some heavy issues here, the $2.8 billion house settlement that was going to usher in college athletics into the world of revenue sharing, it was originally supposed to come down April 7th, remember? And we've talked about this. But then the judge did not like the football roster limits of 105 roster spots. She said that players would lose jobs or roster spots with this limit. And the players were the plaintiffs here. And she didn't want to hurt the plaintiffs in this settlement and told the lawyers, go back to the drawing board on the roster thing. Weeks went by. Then there was June 6th deadline. That's tomorrow. But June 27th is the date in play now because that'll allow time for a potential appeal. Now, anybody out there who runs a business or even an athletic department, which is a business, knows that most fiscal years, including with the college athletics, fiscal years start July 1. So in my opinion, there's no way this thing's getting off the ground for 2025. Otherwise you're expecting athletic departments to abide by brand new rules of revenue sharing that will include carving out $21 million a year per Power 4 school for the next 10 years to make payments to past, current, and future players with 4 days notice? No way. They're going to have to kick this can down the road to 2026. That's what I think. Unless I'm missing something here. All right, back to Michigan. Michigan likes to fancy itself as running backs. They obviously have a big running a game year in and year out. And one of their biggest targets at running back Savion Hiter. Many rating services have this guy as the number one running back of the entire 2026 class. And he'd be a great addition at Michigan. Michigan's very interested in him, except he just visited Ohio State. Ooh, yeah. Ohio State likes running backs too. So we'll keep an eye on this story with great interest. Also of interest for the Buckeyes, if you go to games, there'll be some changes at the Horseshoe. 9 new suites and 400 new chairbacks with wide chairbacks, nice, comfortable seats in the south end zone over there. These suites will be field level, kind of like maybe you've seen at SoFi if you watch a Rams or Chargers game right there on the field. And some other stadiums have them too, but it's just a good example. The marching band, they're going to move back to the north side where they were back prior to the 2001 renovation. So a lot of big changes, a lot more comfort, a lot more money, a lot more big-time atmosphere at Ohio State. And back on the recruiting trail, some momentum for Luke Fickle and the Wisconsin Badgers. And they need it. They do. They hosted a dozen or so recruits this past weekend, and they landed three commitments from those recruits with more expected. And they still have their eye on 4-star wide receiver Jaden Pettit. He made his second visit this weekend with this group, and he's got 32 offers. There are a lot of schools that want him, but they think maybe they can get him. In fact, wide receiver Tayshawn Bardo, who's already committed, he's now helping to recruit as well. In fact, both with Pettit and Zach Washington, a 3-star wide receiver from Wheaton, Illinois. And again, the Badgers are very high on Pettit's list, and we'll see if he comes through. But I mean, if they get Pettit and they get Washington and they get Bardo, that would be a nice little wide receivers room there at Wisconsin, and maybe Luke Fickle could get that air raid offense off the ground that he wants to do there at Wisconsin. That would be a nice get to get all three of them, have them kind of grow up and go into the system together. That would be pretty cool. Again, pivotal year for the Badgers, and Fickle needs a break. He needs some good recruits coming in here. Some people have been disappointed with his first 2 years. I talked about this, I think it was yesterday. So, Wisconsin could be better this year, but you might not know it with the record. They may take a step back with the record, even if they're a better football team. They got 7 ranked teams on their schedule this year. It is by far the most difficult schedule in the Big Ten. So, and look, officials who like Fickle at Wisconsin know this. That's why they kind of quietly gave him a contract extension here in this off season, because they want him going into year 3 of the original 5-year deal, and all of a sudden getting heat because he's not winning any football games. Usually year 3 is a pretty pivotal year for a new coach. So unless the wheels completely fall off, they gave him a little runway here. So add to his contract. So maybe look to next year for Wisconsin to make a big mark forward record-wise. Again, they could be better this year than they were last year. They might be, but they might not win as many games. So keep an eye on that Wisconsin situation. I think that's pretty interesting. All right, coming up, we always have features in our final segment that are always great. Lots of fun. Mondays, for example, if you tune in, you'll see us do our top 10 Big Ten observations from the weekend. We always list those. Those are fun because so much goes on over the weekends. Helps us catch up a little bit. Tuesdays, we do Tuesday tweets on X. Follow us on Twitter. Hit us up with a tweet. Maybe it's good. We'll put it on Tuesday's podcast. Wednesdays, we power rank stuff. We did some Big Ten coaches yesterday, 1 through 18. Just right down the list. If you're up on the top of the list, it was good. If you're on the bottom, it wasn't. Thursdays, we look ahead to the Big Ten Network and their broadcast schedule, and we highlight a few things Friday, Saturday, and Sunday for you to watch over the weekend. We're Big Ten Classics and Big Ten Live Action. We put those out. And the Friday, we make picks. Can't wait for football season where we get into the pigskin picks and all that. But we always got something for you. And we'll look at some odds and some futures in tomorrow's podcast as well. We will also talk about Michigan football tomorrow. Friday and Saturday, that's the hearing with the NCAA for Spygate. You know, they gave their notice. They said, here's what you did. Here's the hearing this weekend. And then the NCAA has 45 days to decide what the punishment will be. Now, Michigan has already self-imposed a 2-game suspension on Sherwood Moore. This is where the NCAA will decide, is that enough? Do they want more? What's going to become of this? This is a very big weekend for Michigan, and we're going to talk about that in tomorrow's podcast. But coming up next, we are going to take a look at Big Ten Classics, the live action this weekend on the Big Ten Network, right here on Locked On Big Ten. All right, let's get back into it and take a look at our Big Ten Classics for the weekend. We'll put this on screen if you're audio only. No sweat. We'll describe it. What's going on? Friday, I only want to point out one thing to you. It's Friday, June 6th. And it's not till 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 o'clock Pacific. It's the Penn State Volleyball Classic of the 2024 NCAA National Championship. Penn State versus Louisville. Jess Music had 29 kills and 14 digs to help the Nittany Lions beat the Cardinals 3-1 and earn the program's 8th national championship. So that's what we got going on Friday. All right, so Saturday we pick up the action at 12:30 Eastern. If you missed it from the weekend before, it's the Big Ten Championship from baseball, where Nebraska beat UCLA. And then we jump to 3:30, a Nebraska Basketball Classic. Illinois at Nebraska. This was from January. How about that? Like, get a little flavor for some basketball. Bryce Williams, 27 points to help the Cornhuskers beat the 18th ranked Fighting Illini 80-74 in overtime. That was a pretty good game. I do remember that. And then at 4:30, we got a Nebraska Basketball Classic. College Basketball Crown Championship versus Central Florida back in April. Remember, we got the NCAA tournament. We got the NIT, which is not as prestigious anymore. We have new tournaments, upstart tournaments. This is one of them. All right, the Crown. And Nebraska won it. Bryce Williams and Connor Sejean had 21 points, while Juwan Gary had 20 to lead the Huskers to a 77-66 victory over the Knights and win the first ever college basketball crown. At 8 o'clock, we got a Nebraska Football Classic. The Big Ten Network is loving Lincoln this weekend and Nebraska. Wisconsin at Nebraska Football Classic from November. This is where Emmett Johnson rushed for 114 yards and Dylan Raiola, still freshman at the time. I am really looking forward to Dylan Raiola's second full season at the helm. I'm expecting big things out of him. Passed for 293 yards and a touchdown to help the Huskers beat the Badgers. So that's what you could do on Saturday night. More stuff on Saturday night. More Nebraska. It's all day Nebraska, all day Saturday. Another football classic, the Bad Boy Mowers Pinstripe Bowl, Nebraska versus Boston College from late December this past season. Again, Dylan Raiola, 228 yards and a touchdown to lead the Huskers to a 2015 victory over the Eagles at Yankee Stadium. And then we're not done with Saturday. You guessed it, more Huskers. Big Ten football in 60, where they boil it down to 60 minutes, snap by snap highlights. And it's at 10 Eastern. It is the Colorado-Nebraska game from September. Oh, I watched that live. That was just an electric atmosphere. Dante Dowdle rushing for 74 yards and 2 touchdowns. Beat Coach Prime, Deion Sanders, Shador Sanders, Shiloh Sanders, Travis Hunter, the Heisman Trophy winner. Beat them all up 28-10. If I remember, though, wasn't that a 28-0 game at the half and then just kind of got bogged down in the second half? But still, a win is a win. 28-10. So that's how you can finish off your Saturday, Huskers fans. Let's move on to Sunday. Sunday looks like we're going to give Iowa some love on the Big Ten Network. We got an Iowa basketball classic, women's basketball from February. Lucy Olson, 28 points, leading the Hawkeyes to a 76-69 victory over Juju Watkins and the fourth-ranked USC Trojans. Then we jumped to 7 o'clock Eastern. Another Big Ten basketball in 60. Nebraska at Iowa from January. Josh Dix had a career-high 31 points, and Peyton Sanford had 30 to help the Hawkeyes back from a 15-point deficit to storm back on the Huskers, 97-87 in overtime. At 8 o'clock, another Big Ten football in 60. Wisconsin at Iowa from November. Caleb Johnson. Now, he's with the Steelers now, right? Rushed for 135 yards and 3 touchdowns in the Hawkeyes' 42-10 victory over the Badgers. And at 9 o'clock, an Iowa football classic. Nebraska at Iowa. Drew Stevens kicking a game-winning field goal as time expired to lift the Hawkeyes to a 13-10 victory over the Huskers. There you have it. Big Ten classics, Big Ten live action over the weekend, all that stuff right here. Mostly classics. So you can check that out. In case it's a little too hot for you outside, maybe getting some spring showers, want to come in, watch some stuff. If you're a Huskers fan or an Iowa fan, you got a lot of stuff on here. Maybe record it. So check all that out. Big Ten Classics. We do it every single Thursday right here. All right. Many ways for you to interact with this podcast. First of all, there's Twitter or X at Talk Big Ten. Use the number 10. Our website, talkbig10.com. Also use the number 10. We have all of our podcasts. This one will go there. We do them chronologically. You can group them by school. At the bottom, you can click on and get some merchandise for your favorite team. Huskers fan gets some Huskers t-shirts. Iowa fan, get an Iowa hat. Michigan fan, get a Michigan pennant for the old office. All that stuff right there at your fingertips. Talkbig10.com. Before you go, please hit that subscribe button. It is free. And that helps us out. It helps you out. That way you'll never miss a single episode. Always invite you to go back and catch yesterday in case you missed it for a second listen. And I also invite you, please tell your friends about us, because I know if you're a Big Ten fan or Big Ten alum, you know other people who are Big Ten fans and alum. Let them know we're out here each and every day. We're growing so fast. There's some people that don't know we're out here as we make our push to 20,000 subscribers before football season. We do all 18 teams, all the sports, news, analysis, and opinion, all of it in one place right here. That's what makes this the most unique Big Ten podcast in the world. Thank you for being part of it. I also invite you to check out Brian Smith and the Portal Show. He's part of the Locked On family. Keeping track of who's going where, who's coming, who's going. Again, the Portal Show on YouTube, wherever you listen to your podcast. That'll do it for us. Again, tomorrow, going to get into Michigan football a little bit. Tell your friends. And we'll find something to do some odds or picks with at the end of the podcast to send you into your weekend. All right. Thank you very much for joining us here today. I never take it for granted. Always appreciate it. And can't wait till we meet again tomorrow for Locked On Big Ten. I'm Craig Sheeman. We'll talk to you next time.